Good morning, folks. Happy Friday the 13th. The 13th is actually a very lucky day. There were 13 original colonies that became the 13 original states. And you have tuned into the Dr. Kent Show. However, we're going to cover some stuff that's pretty wild. And I told the people at my other channel, on Awakening Israel, that they would want to listen to this. So I'm going to cover stuff which is going to be somewhat extra biblical. Okay, the foundations of this are not that scriptural in a certain sense. And we're going to cover the time clock, and we're going to also cover the signs, the gospel in the heavens, which I have mixed feelings about because I don't like studying astrology. But there are some things that we cannot ignore. So, in case you're wondering what's important about this particular show for you, is that we are fast approaching the end of an earth age. And that Sphinx out there, which by the way was built, I believe, as a monument to Shem, the Sphinx out there is nothing but a giant timepiece. It marks up an earth age completely, and we are coming quickly to the end of an earth age. That's not a good thing for all of us on the surface, all of everything on the surface. So the Sphinx points at this particular area, constellation or star. I don't know what it is. I usually don't study this stuff very much. And when it gets there is the exact time that this place comes apart. However, before that happens, we're going to have another event occur. Yep, the Israelites are going to want to hear about this one. That's why they're going to be crossing over and tuning into this channel today. So what is it that you need to know? You need to know it's going to be a race to the finish to see what happens first. So let me give you the big picture and the definitive thing. Approximately every 12,000 years, we come to a certain spot in the galaxy, and it repeats. We go through this time and time again. And when our solar system passes through this area, there's a lot of what they call dust. And the Earth picks up space dust. It picks up mass. It grows in size. And this time it's going to grow to be 100.5% of its current mass by the time this is over. And the Earth has been growing for quite a while, and of course that slows us down a little bit and makes our year slightly longer. You see, the year used to be 360 days. How do we know that? I don't know if I can cover everything, and I don't want to go off on a tangent right now. So let me stick to this. So your Sphinx is a giant clock, an indicator, like a giant dial on a giant clock. And then when the Earth is picking up the space dust, the sun, our sun, is also picking up the dust. When it goes through this particular part of the Milky Way galaxy, then the sun gets irritated from all the dust. It accumulates in its atmosphere, irritates it, and as a result, the sun goes micronova. You need to get that through your heads. It goes micronova, and when it does, that's the beginning of another Earth age. Earth ages do not last as long as what we were thinking. You see, all of science has been screwed up. The guys that run and control the planet, the rulers of evil, actually screw us up, depriving us of knowledge every which way they can. They obscure everything. There was a Russian physicist, I don't know his name, I don't major in physics, and I have trouble remembering names anyway. There was a Russian physicist who studied the onset of ice ages, and it was his hypothesis. The conclusion he came to was that it begins with a micronova, and when that thing goes off, it's hell on earth for the entire surface. And in case you're wondering, that's kind of in the Bible. It's told a little bit backwards, if you will, because we think of the angel over the pit as being down there in hell, down underneath our feet, down inside the earth. No, it's up in the sky, and that thing throws lightning bolts at us, quite literally. And it also creates plasma displays, and the electrical impulses are so great that nothing hides from it. No electronics will survive it. We get to start over. We are reduced to the Stone Age once again. Species go extinct, and somehow there's the great miracle of speciation. And in case you're wondering what the last Earth Age was like, go look at Something Under the Carpet. It's a 3-part video series by Marsh 3 years ago. And basically, you'll see these bones that were the tibia bones. Not the femurs, the tibia bones, the thinner, smaller, lower leg bones of these birds, which men used to hunt in New Zealand a long time ago. And these birds would somehow create a trap for the birds by flooding an area, creating a mud trap, and they would drive these birds into the mud traps. These birds were huge. They were big, and when the birds went into the mud traps, they couldn't get their legs out, and they were stuck. And they would go in and kill the birds, haul the carcasses off, and roast them and eat them elsewhere. And the bones were tibia bones. I'll go behind my head. I don't have enough room to go wide enough here. About that wide, a little bit more. They were huge. And that's just the shorter leg bone of these birds. And of course, our masters do not want us to know this stuff. They don't want us to discover the truth or the secrets. And in case you're wondering, this thing about carbon being a problem and you can't have fuel because it creates more carbon, it's actually that they're trying to deprive you so that you won't be able to get through the ice age. Because believe me, it's going to get real cold. Alaska is going to be warm. Alaska in the wintertime today is going to be warm compared to the ice age. By the way, the ice age lasts less than a year. And there was another Russian physicist in the 1800s, by the way, way back then, who studied the end of the ice age. End of ice ages. And his theory, his hypothesis, his conclusions were the ice age ended with a solar flare, a giant solar flare coming out, hitting the Earth, and starting the de-thawing period, which apparently is rather rapid. So we're headed for that. In case you're wondering, it's going to be somewhere around 2044, 46. Somewhere around then. And between now and then, it's going to get crazier on the planet. Why? Gross mental instability. The birds and the whales, the fish that migrate and depend upon the magnetic field and sensing that, are all going to go haywire because our magnetic field is going to drop to damn near zero. During this reset, it's my belief that the charge of the Earth may swap around to balance itself out to keep this perpetual motion machine, this perpetual Earth spaceship, livable, and recycle it. So we're going to get recycled. Now, the other channel is going to want to hear this other stuff pretty much. There was a fellow, and he did a lot of research. He was a computer programmer, brainy guy. He put together algorithms, and he wanted to discover the positions of the sun and the moon relative to the Earth across time history. And he discovered that on the high holy days of ancient Israel, that there were different events that occurred. One of them was solar eclipses, another one were lunar eclipses, and these happened on the high holy days of ancient Israel. And I believe, and I don't remember this stuff very accurate because I don't talk about it very much, I don't run into anybody open-minded enough to have such a conversation. But as I recall, he pinpointed the year of the coronation of King David of Israel to the year by using this machine, this algorithm, and running the computer model backwards in time, and he saw that there were 6 sequential lunar eclipses or a solar eclipse on the high holy days of ancient Israel across I believe it was a 3-year period, and there were 6 of those. I believe that's the case. Don't hold me to it. I didn't keep notes on this. It was a wild idea, and I just didn't keep notes. In case you're wondering, it was Pastor Jerry's Wiki's oldest boy who came up with this. Takes a brainy guy to think of this stuff. However, I'm also reminded of the fact that we're told not to worship the stars, the heavenly host. The Queen of Heaven is not allowed. So, and I try to stay away from astrology and all of that other stuff. Zoology makes more sense to me than astrology does. However, he moved his model forward, and he come into approximately 2033, 2028, 2029, and there's going to be a 3.5-year period. It'll mean something to the folks that read the Bible. And there will be a total of 7 solar and lunar eclipses, all on the high holy days of ancient Israel. And in the Bible, it is commanded that you will celebrate these particular days forever. And there's a reason for that, because everything's set up to happen on those days. Repeating itself. So we had the coronation of King David during that. And there was another brother, Reed Benson, who wrote a marvelous book called The Anglo-Israelite Thesis. It is darn near perfect, and it's a great history book. I would say it was written at the old 7th grade level, today's 10th grade level. Maybe it's actually college level today. We've inflated education so much and degraded it so doggone much. So, what could possibly happen, as foretold in the Bible, what could happen during this next series? And that series is going to be more than a decade in advance of the big event, which we know is coming. So it's going to get a little bit more complicated from here on out. Do not fret, because it's Friday the 13th, although I'm not going out in the streets because there were some really bad accidents yesterday, and every time I go out there, the people are crazy, and it's a lot of traffic. You would think that gas was only $2 a gallon again. There's so many people out there. So you're getting the scientific aspects of it, and it's corresponding quite well with the biblical record and with the geological record. It goes back a long time. So I invite you to join me on Awakening Israel. We do read the Bible on that channel, and we do cover things a bit more from Scripture. Pastor Jerry Wiki said that most of these churches, the big box churches, would be a lot better off that if instead of preaching the lies from the pulpit like these guys do, and by the way, that was foretold in the book of Isaiah, the lying pastors, the people who would love them, they'd love to hear that smooth talk, something about beer involved in it too. Anyway, I don't have much more for you today, except I can tell you that there's a lot of truth and historical fact in the Bible. And it's not a history of the world. It's a history of a particular people's, and that's about it. World history is much greater. However, if you want to know why you're under attack and why things are going the way they are, then you definitely have to consult with the Bible. And you have to look at the geological record, the science of that, and you have to open your mind and put aside all this stuff that they're trying to, the prevailing brainwashing, including the brainwashing that occurs in the churches. I don't recommend going to the big box churches. I recommend you sit down and read the Bible for yourself. That's the most important thing you can do. And then when you're motivated, then you can find a good group of Bible readers with whom you can talk. If you can't talk with that pastor, if he doesn't talk with you, then ditch him. He's no good. So you have a couple of different clocks ticking at the same time. And most of you watching this are going to be alive for those events. I may not be. I'm getting older. I'm way past my prime, way past the middle of my life. So let me ask you one question. And this is sort of therapeutic in a way. Are you in the middle? Have you got half of your life behind you or half of your life in front of you? Just ponder that question. Is half of your life behind you or half of your life in front of you? And I'll leave you on that word. That's about as close to group therapy as we're going to get right now. May Yahweh bless the Republic. Wake up, America.